Right then, welcome back. XG Files, Stephen Howson, Ronaldo, all right?
Still not got an intro for this, you know.
I know, it's on the to-do
Generic.
list. Sophie, sort this out, honestly.
Sophie.
No Dre today.
Yeah, no Dre. Where is he?
He's driving in.
Oh, he's driving in from all the way from
Leamington.
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 I thought it was just Birmingham.
It's further. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Dre and his lovely curly locks. We're talking about these two. Or three, actually.
Could be more.
Could be more, actually. So this week we saw Andy Mitten was the one I saw break the news.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone else break that news, so let's just give Andy Mitten the credit he deserves. Top journalist Andy Mitten. Marcel Boot, Jim Lawler, Chief Scout, Head of Global Scouting Operations, have been given the pow at United. Or they've left. I'm not actually sure if they've given a bullet or whatever, but they've gone.
Judging by how long they were in office, maybe it was a bit of, we're going to give you the boot, but you can make it look like you've walked away kind of thing. Sometimes it could be a little bit of a mutual agreement. I was more looking at the timing of it. We thought...
That was very interesting.
Timing was very interesting. It was probably something I was in the pipeline for a while. I think everyone at United expected Liverpool to give United a thrashing. He probably had things prepared for the day after to kind of soften the blow.
I actually think you're going to get Ten Hag today, tomorrow, in all honesty. I still would, if I was betting man and you could bet on that, I would say that. I think that's coming.
Yeah, I think it's literally been announced by Romano. Well, not announced, but Romano did suggest last night, and all the reports are suggesting that Romano is going to be announcing within the next... Not Romano. Ten Hag will be announcing the next 24 hours, and that's what was said last night. I think it's a bit of a guessing game.
Feels like today.
Feels like today. Hopefully it is. I think someone that needs to just
Last week I said Wednesday.
Yeah, everyone thought
get
after.
Smacked up off Liverpool and they just do it on a Wednesday to sort of like move things along.
But instead they bin the scouts just after Rangnick kind of scathed into a lot of the issues at the club after the Liverpool game.
So I'm going to talk to you about your balls. So sit back, pin them back, and listen to me talk about your nutsack. Hey? Poet, I didn't even know it. Listen, spring has sprung and our friends at Manscaped are here to give you the best tools for some spring cleaning in your pants. Trust me, your confidence will be blooming like the flowers of the upcoming spring. It's time to clear out that winter bush. Join the 4 million men worldwide that trust Manscaped. Use the code XG20. You get 20% off and you get free shipping. Right? Simple as that. They're the leaders in the global leaders, like world champions at below the waist men's grooming, and have forever changed the grooming game with their amazing performance package 4.0. In a care bundle, you get the lawnmower, you get a weed whacker, you get which is an ear and nose trimmer, you get a crop preserver, you get ball deodorant. You need ball deodorant in your life, and if you don't think you do, you do. They got performance boxer briefs and a travel bag to hold all of your goodies. Listen, it's genuinely good stuff. Hit the link in the description. Go check them out. Do you know what it is? It's a fucking tapping of a present for someone. That's what it is. You know you gotta do it. So, has this... Like, we was looking at Paul Mitchell and we was looking at Rangnick and we was going, okay, two competent people, two people that we know can do a job that we think we either struggle with or don't have someone doing. But is there a role for them? At the moment, you've got John Murtaugh. You've got Darren Fletcher. John Murtaugh is supposed to be the football director or director of football. I'm not sure it's actually director of football, his title, is it? But is it sporting director? You've got Darren Fletcher, who's a technical director, who apparently got his arse handed to him this morning by Ralph. Or there's some talk coming out saying that Ralph saw his arse with him talking to some of the players during the game. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
From what I can gather, or it's my understanding, Fletcher doesn't even know what his job is. He's kind of just doing a bit of firefighting, just seeing where it sort of fits. I wouldn't be surprised to see him leave at the end of the season.
I think red flags and alarm bells were when Rangnick himself said he weren't sure what Darren Fletcher's job was.
That was about a month ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the biggest concern, and that just sums up the club. And I think we do know that there's a huge rebuild coming. There's going to be basically a fire sale, and that might not just be in the pit. That might not just be players. That might be obviously the background. We've already seen it,
yeah.
And I think United fans need to realise that when that happens, it does naturally mean that things are going to get worse, probably before they get better. And the question is, are we going to get prepared for that?
Well, I know some people that work in analysis, at the club and elsewhere, and I know that there's a lot of people not happy with a lot of how United's analysis is conducted, but also how it's integrated into everything that the players do. We know one person, if you don't know who that is, you can go check my Patreon because they do. One person that United are looking at bringing over, a young lady that United are bringing over, or looking at bringing over, that could have a massive part. She's sports science and analytical data. When you look at what she might bring, when you look at what Mitchell might bring, I've felt Rangnick has had a real positive influence on the club. He comes out and looks well grumpy every day. And I can imagine why. Because you see it on the pitch.
People have largely said the opposite.
A lot of people
I'm seeing a lot of scrutiny towards Rangnick and his record and his management saying
I don't care.
And
he's done worse than I thought he would do.
Yeah.
But I don't care how he's done. It makes no impact on my decision with him in the future.
I was almost going to say Rangnick. I get the same vibe from Rangnick, but I don't think it's not that he doesn't care. I think because he's interim, I think he's had half an eye on the fact that he's going to go into this consultancy role, and he thinks when I actually get there, then I can actually make the changes I need to make.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of used this latter stage of the season. Obviously, he's wanting to win games, but I think he's wanting to work out what needs changing, what's wrong, find out what the weeds are, who needs.
There's one thing I haven't seen him do yet, which he's actually started to do. I mean, he's done it with Alanga, but he's not fully dunked both feet in. I would now, if I was him, use these remaining 5, whatever it is, games. Is it 5 or 6? Remaining games. Let's find out if Garnacho's got it. Let's find out if Mabry's got it. Let's find out if McNeil's got it. Just have an opinion on him in a first team game. Because every other aspect of what he's done, he's put in play. Saw some people yesterday. I mean, I'm going to avoid as much as possible today digging out Harry Maguire because I am very aware that it's pretty much all I've done for the last week. But I think exposing some of the weaknesses and frailties of some of our players by trying to play an energetic pressing system, which he's definitely tried to play. We saw it in the metrics, didn't we? The pre and post Rangnick. We've seen that we have pressed more. There's more pressures from United under Rangnick than there were under Solskjaer. We have got a higher line. Is it the 4th highest line in the league?
I've not seen any metrics on line height. But
yeah, it's the 4th, maybe 5th highest line.
It would make sense. I feel like high lines usually correlate with how much possession you have and how much you're often in the final third. Yeah.
So I think he's exposed a few things. He's dealing with a team that Ollie built initially to be a counter-attacking side and was kind of under a lot of pressure to make it a ball-playing side with the additions of Varane and Sancho and Ronaldo. Mm. And it wasn't up to the task. Ollie lost his job because of that. It had gone west by the end anyway, so I'm not trying to rewrite history and say that was a mistake. I think it was the correct decision at the time. But I think judging Ralph by a team that he's had zero hand in setting up, and also he's had about 15 first-team players to deal with. That's it. It's not like he's got... If you got a Chelsea-sized squad or a City-sized squad, City maybe less because they're very much of an archetype, but if you went into one of those monster-sized squads, you could probably get a couple of different tunes out of it because of the different levels of personnel that you've got. You go into Chelsea, you could play about 9 different midfields. Isn't it? Comfortably. You go into Chelsea, you could play about fucking 6 different forward lines. There's options there for you. You can play a back 3, you can play a back 5, you can play a back 4. You could do anything you wanted in there because of the nature of the number of players you've got in the squad. But I think that what he's had to do and what he has done, he's exposed a lot of the frailties that we've got, kind of with an eye on Ten Hag coming in. Ten Hag can't wait until July and then August once pre-season starts to see that some of these players can't play in a high line. So I think what Ralph's done, he's done a little bit of the fact-finding.
Ten Hag's definitely been watching already, but back to that point, what you're saying about you feel like youngsters should be blooded in, I do agree. But the only concern I have is the general quality of the first-team players that we have anyway. I know as a youngster, when you're going into a team and your first-team game, you're going to want arms around you, you want leaders, you want characters, you're going to want help, you want to players that can put you in great positions. You don't want to be a youngster going onto the pitch and then getting a square lofted hospital pass at Anfield that you've got to run backwards onto with Robertson running down your neck. That's not what you want.
No.
And that's my only concern. I feel like these players might have a little bit in them we won't be able to see unless they play, the youngsters.
Counter
But
that,
if they play, you're going to see if they can cope. They can show you a little bit of something, but I don't want them getting their confidence ruined by playing with players that can't make 5-yard passes, can't keep the ball.
I'm not sure that's a thing.
Yeah.
It might be a thing, but I'm not sure it's a thing because I think
It is because if you're a youngster going into Liverpool side and playing left wing, and they just figure you're gonna a lot easier. Do you know what I mean?
But I still think if you've got the character, then you've got the character, and the evidence I'll give you is before you was born, and this is gonna make me feel dead old now. But because of the free foreigner rule in the Champions League early doors, you know about when United went to the Nou Camp and we got absolutely blasky booed. It was a 17-year-old Nicky Butt played central midfield in that game. Did it affect his career? Did it affect him?
No. Variables though.
Massive.
Yeah.
And today's generation, maybe not, but character's character. I remember people saying, there's no characters and this, that, and other. And then Wayne Rooney came around. Every generation looks at the one that's coming after it as softer and weaker. But there'll be some Gennaro Gattusos, there'll be some Rooneys, there'll be some Roy Keanes even come out in the next 10, 15 years. There will be, because these people exist in humanity. There'll be loads of soft asses, and there'll be loads of people who don't make it because they're soft asses. That's not going to change. But there'll still also be the people with the right stuff that come through. And maybe someone like a Garnacho, maybe a Mabry. This is a little bit of talk. Maybe he's got an attitude problem. Do you know who else had an attitude problem? Sancho. Do I have an attitude problem? Because he knew he was good enough and he weren't getting games. Did he have an attitude problem? Or did he have not playing
ambition.
Enough games problem? So I don't necessarily subscribe to every attitude problem is a problem. Sometimes it can be confidence and ambition not being fulfilled. But back on these lot, if Lawler has been given a bullet and Marcel Bou has given a bullet, that means there's a revelation coming through in the recruitment department. Now, I've said for a while, head of recruitment has got that guy's name all over it, Paul Mitchell. I would love that to happen.
You know what concerned us though when we heard the Paul Mitchell links, because of the whole relationship you used to have with Poch, you thought it was going to be 1 + 1 = 2. But
he's also got a relationship with Rangnick.
Yeah, he does.
Through the Red Bull Sports.
Yeah, he does. And actually, if you do read into it a little bit more, I think it ended not too well between Paul Mitchell and Poch anyway. But forget Poch, not having him. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. But I do agree with you. I'm kind of looking forward to this whole rebuild situation more than most, because I feel like it's something freshening, it's something to look forward to. I think we need to kind of move away from what we've seen in the last decade. And it's one of...
You're the same mind as me, aren't you? If you'd appointed Conte, you're just going down the same tracks.
You might have got that more immediatism, but I think
yeah,
we're not
I agree on that.
Because I'm kind of conflicted in that whole short-termism, long-termism thing, because you don't want it to be too long before you reach success again. But you don't want it to be a kind of a quick thing where you might like win a FA Cup with Conte and then you're back to square one because you've went and bought a few 28, 29-year-olds, the ones that Mourinho likes to bring in, and there's not that longevity to it.
Conte likes
yeah, do you know what I mean? But don't get me wrong, Conte is a winner and he's a good manager. Did I really think he was a fit for United? Not really.
That's the thing.
But
I don't dislike him as a manager. I don't dislike his tactics. I don't even necessarily dislike the methods that he goes about to get the victories that he gets. I just think that every club should have its own identity. And I get clipped up by fucking absolute choppers who don't have a clue. I'm just about what words mean.
Yeah, I think,
saying that I want United to stand for something the way Bilbao stand for something. I didn't say I want United to stand for what Bilbao stand for. Bilbao stand for what Bilbao stand for.
The only issue is United's meant to stand for winning, and that's not what we're standing for at the moment.
Not alone though.
Because we can have an identity, that's true, but there's got to be evolution, and I think that's where we've left.
We've only been extreme winners, champions of Europe every single time. I would call us extreme winners when we've been flooded with homegrown players. That's it. It's a very simple correlation. Same with Barcelona. Barcelona have been the best version of Barcelona when they've been flooded with homegrown players. And homegrown doesn't mean local Mancunian. George Best is not Mancunian. Duncan Edwards was not Mancunian. Ryan Giggs is not Mancunian. No, Messi is not
That's-
Catalonian.
The thing is, that is true.
It's not a...
But we do know football's cyclical, innit? So it's like one of them where, in a time where Barcelona were flooded with homegrown players is when they were most successful. That was true then. It could be true in the future.
True in 1992.
Yeah,
It was
could be true in the future.
2009.
Same with United. But it's one of them homegrown players do still have to be good enough.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're talking about European champions here.
It is true. And then football does change. And my whole thing is, I do understand United DNA, the identity thing, and the club having to stand for something. But I think part of that has been some of the problem. But it sounds a bit contradictory because I feel like there's elements of United that were good that we've lost in terms of passion. Because even Roy Keane said it the other day after the game. He said, "This is not the club that I played for." He almost doesn't recognise it. Paul Scholes said it as well.
Absolutely don't, yeah.
But I keep harping back to the word evolution. I think there's not been that at United in terms of adjusting and adapting to the way the football's gone, making smart decisions along the way while still keeping reminiscences of them.
Picking players, and that's just not picking people out of your academy. What that is about, and Ajax and Ten Hag had the same sort of success with homegrown players. They've been at their best with homegrown players. Ajax. What it means is putting systems in place that you're getting the best of Manchester, you're getting the best of England, you're getting the best of Europe, and you're cherry picking a couple of Garnachos or whoever coming through, like in South America maybe. It's the cherry picking of the world of talent because, let's be honest, United, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, we're not dealing with the best people in Liverpool, London and Manchester. We're dealing with the best 17, 16, 15-year-olds in the world at the time. The ones that we're going to try and gamble on being the next Messi, the next Ronaldo, the next Roy Keane, the next Wayne Rooney. And it's about putting systems in place, 1, to identify them, 2, to attract them, 3, to train them in your style, to physically develop them, to mentally develop them. That was what La Masia was so famous for. But actually, what are they producing, apart from like right now, in the peak Messi era to now? What have they really produced in between?
Not much. They've had a couple of players come through and then leave. Obviously now we've seen the likes of Gavi.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, Pedri doesn't count because Pedri was, I think he bought him from Las Palmas or something a couple of years ago in La Liga.
But yeah, there's like, a couple started to step up and come through now.
A couple of step ups now. I think
so. It's about developing them mentally.
I think interestingly, I know you've kind of said something against it, but Real Madrid have kind of had more academy products.
Have they?
More recently. I think the likes of they've had a couple actually. I know they usually buy out their youngsters from a very young age, but I think I saw a statistic that Real Madrid are actually up there within the last 15 years for academy products.
In the last 20 years, it's probably going to change in the next 5 years. I think City are going to have a few more. They've got some real talent coming through at City. Roy Delap's son, Cole Palmer, some absolute ballers coming through.
Do you think a lot of that comes from club success and then having like a monopoly over youngsters? Because I think that's half the reason why Chelsea's academy are so good.
Yeah, I was about to say Chelsea's academy in terms of identifying the absolute best talent in the country might be unmatched. But developing them from being win. This is another thing as well. Is quite often a lot of United's elite players aren't playing in their under-18 teams because they're either in the 23s or they're sat on the bench for the first team. And that happens elsewhere. That doesn't happen at Chelsea for the most part.
17 get loaned out.
Yeah, well, no, they're getting loaned out a little bit older. So their under-18s is like an absolute just stackathon. It's just rammed full of talent. And it is the best talent. And they're also getting the best results out of that. I mean, them and City have just shared the FA Youth Cup. They're both always in the mixer for winning the Premier League under 18. Like, it's incredible what they're doing, but they've not yet, and City haven't either, not yet. I mean, let's be honest, Foden aside, no one has really graduated into City's first team. No one to the level of Foden, at least.
Yeah, I think Chelsea more so. I think.
Yeah, lately,
obviously. I think Chelsea's first team are stats full of academy products now. I think people kind of look past Chelsea in that, saying that they do buy a lot of players, they do spend a lot of money, but they've got likes of Mason Mount, Reece James starting every week. They do have Trevor Chalobah coming into it. They do have a lot.
Yeah, this is a more recent few years sort of
Hudson-Odoi.
development.
But we're saying this as like kind of a success story, but really with the level of talent that they have
And
at the
the
academy,
money
they should,
that they blow.
and the money that they blow, and they should be doing this because we're talking about the fact they've got Conor Gallagher on loan and they've got Broder on loan at
After
Southampton.
Premier League's Chelsea.
Got Livermento at Southampton. They've got Gueye at Palace. They're like,
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what Chelsea haven't yet done is,
Yeah.
and this is the final piece of the jigsaw, and this for me is where Ten Hag,
Yeah.
Rangnick, Mitchell all have to work together, is getting them into the first team. So Chelsea recently, let's think, they bought Lukaku, £100 million. And they had Tammy Abraham. Now Tammy Abraham's having a Lukaku £100 million season over in Italy, innit? Maybe just under.
that's an academy product.
And he's their academy product. Like, a good director of football, and this isn't me saying Tammy Abraham's even close to being on the level of Lukaku, but a good director
Probably
of
is now.
football. I mean, there might be a lot of people make that argument now, but he's literally doing a copy paste of what Lukaku did last year.
And
In the
it's
same
not
league.
the easiest league to do it in.
Not for a striker, it's not.
Yeah.
A good director of football, a good head of recruitment, and a good manager that have got a good working relationship, that there's no agendas behind, no one trying to get a one-up on anyone. They all work together for the best of the club. They go, actually, give him the chance. Don't blow the money on it. We're desperate for a centre-half. All the centre-halves we've got are 19. They're not going to cut it. Okay, go buy a 26-year-old. Because by the time he starts to tip off, we've got 23 and 24-year-olds that are starting to come through then. We'll have Mengi go out on loan. Championship, Premier League, and then we'll see if he's ready. And then we'll have
Same
Laird
with
go
Garner.
out and we'll do blah, 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 blah.
Garner's the nearest, isn't he?
And that succession plan A, plan B, because you've got to think, okay, if this doesn't work with him, what's plan B? So you might say, right, okay, I'm going to sanction a signing for a centre-half, but you're not having 100 million for a centre-half. One, I don't think there's any 100 million pound centre-halves out there. I think all you need are this set of skills. What's he got to have? He's got to have good ball playing ability. Okay. He's got to be able to break lines and hit the striker. Okay. He's got to be pretty quick. Okay. He needs to be 6'1". We decided the other day 6'1's perfect height for a centre half, didn't we? Was it 6'3"?
Nah, it's not 6'1". It's a bit taller than that. It's like around 6'2", 6'3", really. That's why because we was looking at the stuff with Timber and talking about his lack of height. Apparently City are going to go in strong for Timber, apparently.
I can see that.
In the summer. But it's all right having these profiles.
Kyle Walker playing centre half. They can play Timber.
Yeah, when you've got the type of possession that they do have, you can kind of see that happening. But we're talking about...
That's another thing as well. And actually, I'm going to steal this thinking for Paddock, actually. When you play on the halfway line, you're not susceptible to those sustained crosses coming into the box. The reason that people have massive, giant centre-halves is to deal with the aerial threat. But there isn't an aerial threat if you're on the halfway line. The same aerial threat.
Apart from goal kicks.
Yeah.
And obviously getting pinned. Because if you've still not got it's not like...
That's why you don't have two Kyle Walkers.
Because you're saying defending crosses will be a height issue. My thing is, if you're playing a higher line and then just constantly getting in behind you and then getting corners and getting free kicks, a centre-half is invariably always going to have to defend crosses no matter in a 90-minute game. At some point.
But if you're on the halfway line, I think you see more through balls that you've got to deal with and chase, especially if you've got the sort of possession City have got.
So you're thinking that you're saying centre halves don't need to be as much brutes in a sense. They don't have to be as big when they're playing for sides that are really possession based, really high line, and you don't have to.
I certainly don't think you need two. I think you always need height in a back line. Always.
I feel like no matter what the generation is, centre half's still gonna have to have some sort of physicality though.
Is because he's 6'3" and fucking rapid.
So's Matip.
Yeah.
So's Kanate. Do you know what I mean?
You can get your big boys that can move, but you can also get your Kyle Walkers who've just got that blistering acceleration that you're never getting in behind.
But when Kyle Walker plays in a back three, it's usually in a back three. It's not in a two centre half kind of situation. I don't think I've seen him play that. I think it's when he plays for the likes of England when he's right at the back three. I think it's a little bit different then.
I was chatting to Anton yesterday and he was talking about playing against pace. And he was quick, so he said he didn't mind it. and he was talking about Kieran Richardson. Don't know if it's just because he's been on the show recently or if he was the example he wanted to use. And he was talking about Theo Walcott, and he was like, for him, he goes, a lot of people will tell you Theo Walcott was quicker than Kieran Richardson.
Yeah.
He goes, but for me, Kieran Richardson was quicker because he goes, I could do this to Theo Walcott, and he would have to run past my arm. He goes, I do this to Kieran Richardson, and he fucking moves my arm, and he runs through it. He goes, so I could always slow someone down by getting an arm
Like
out.
a stiff arm, innit?
He goes, I would always slow a quick player down by getting an arm across them.
But when they've
and
got the
making
power
them
with
round. But when they're a powerful player as well, he goes, they just fucking blast through you.
That's when the Haaland, if you watch Haaland,
Yeah.
It's not just a pace thing, it's a power pace thing.
It don't matter where you are. And the original Ronaldo was the same. He'd run through you. You can't defend him. You just fucking bounce off him. And that's where having someone like a Van Dijk, I'm going to try and run him. Yeah, good luck. I'm going to try hit through him. Yeah, fucking good luck. And I don't think he's as combative in the air as some centre halves. I think he's a bit slicker with that. Like Rio. Rio could head a ball.
That's actually a myth, But Van Dijk's aerial duel percentage and his aerial duel one's up there.
This is it.
It's better than Maguire's.
It's good. It's good. It's up there. But I think a lot of the time you're not seeing him in those scrappy.
You don't have to.
Battles. No,
because of the system, and it's more about tracking back and 1v1 defending.
You're not seeing him. It's like
I
wouldn't say Rio was shit in the air, but you didn't see him in those battles.
Vidic did it.
And a lot of the time Vidic would go and seek those battles out. I bet Vidic's percentage was really low because he was probably going in for ones that he had like zero chance of, where Van Dijk, Rio might pick their battles a little bit more. Decide when they're going to go in and when they're going to sit off it. Like Anton, I don't know if he said it on a podcast. I think he said it just as we were sitting in the office, and he was talking about he's never had a mentor on the pitch. He broke into the first team young because he just had ability, but then he never got developed on the pitch by playing alongside someone older. And he said it was someone's testimonial, and he played alongside Rio, and he goes, it's the only time I ever played alongside Rio. And he goes, it's a testimonial game. Rio's not taking it serious. He goes, I learnt more in 40 minutes playing alongside Rio than I ever have playing alongside anybody else. And he goes, the commands were sick. He goes, they were short, they were sharp, and it'd be like, there'd be 4 words, but there'd be so much detail in them. He goes, and you would just go do them. He goes, and then Rio would move on to something else, and he goes, he never shut up organising. He goes, he just titivated the entire defence, so he had nothing to do. And he goes, that was defending to me. He goes, so he'd say to someone, go mark him right side, stay right side of him, show him onto Rio almost. He goes, and then Rio would bring a centre mid over, and he'd be like, go get left side of him in case the ball comes down left side. And then Rio's doing nothing, and he's just observing. Everyone's boxed off and sewn up. And you just think, that's fucking elite. That's a side of the game that doesn't make a highlights reel. Ain't no one highlight reeling you just moving someone over there and then nothing happened. But don't realise that nothing happened because you moved some guy over there.
That's exactly. It's about being 2 steps ahead, and communication is 9/10 of the game when it comes to football anyway. People can actually go and watch games in silence. You'd see how much talking's involved.
Do you know Brian McClare introduced that at the Cliff at United? Brian McClare was headed United's youth for a long time. I'm going to talk to him about this. We'll get him on the brew and we'll talk to him about this properly. And I'd heard that he introduced all the parents have to sign something when you get there to United. Because it's like academy football. Everyone's parents are hyped up.
Thinking their sons,
the kid's a star.
Yeah.
And they coach from the sideline, don't they? Well, Brian McClare wasn't having none of that. You got to be silent. So you go and watch United's under 14s, 13s, whatever. I don't know if that's still the case, but while he was there, this was the rules. You have to be silent. And you watch the game in silence. The coach occasionally coaches, but they're encouraged to not coach. Because why?
They want them to talk to each other.
They want the players to figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yeah, they want the players to learn. If you're just... It's like the Luke Shaw, Jose Mourinho. It was my brain and his body.
Yeah.
But there's so much in that. It's like, if Luke Shaw could just do it, he doesn't need Jose fucking joysticking him round on the game. He'd be a better player. Because someone telling you to do something is always going to be 2 seconds later than if you know why you're doing it, for one. and you spot it yourself, you're in a better position than a coach most of the time.
And you'll actually have a little bit of heightened concentration. You're not there thinking about, all right, Mourinho's telling me this. You feel like you kind of know it yourself, thinking about the next thing.
Even if, like, someone might say to you, go and stand over there, some part of you might be like, why? But if you yourself go, do you know what? This guy's coming down. I know he's all... Let's say you're playing left back or left wing, fuck it, let's just call your position. You've got a right-sided fullback up against you, and he's all right foot. You might go and stand right on the whitewash. Because what you're going to do? You're going to force him in onto his left. And you might say, I'm going to press this lad, but I'm not going to press him in to out. I'm going to press him out to in. And I'm going to show him into my number 10. I'm going to clamp him. And you might do that every time. And you might have just thought of that. And you might say to your number 10, here's what we're going to do. And then that's going to have a better hit rate than me telling you to go do it, isn't it?
Yeah. Of course it is. These are simple basics that we're talking about in football as well. And it's something that I think everyone knows happens on the pitch and it kind of needs to happen. But is that happening enough when watching United at the moment? I feel like it's one of those where...
Have you seen this pass where De Gea looks at...
Yeah, and he doesn't want to give it him. I think, you know what it is? I feel like they're on holiday already. What's annoyed me is if United had a little bit of impetus in games he should have won against the likes of Everton and even worse results they've had in the past 2 months, we'd still well and truly be well in the hunt for top 4 because Tottenham and Arsenal have slipped up and they have pretty hard remaining fixtures as well, both teams. But it's just that United seem to have this whole thing, it's this interim manager thing, looking to Ten Hag, looking to next season, and it's like the season's invariably over already. And we need to see the likes of Paul Mitchell come in. We need to see Ten Hag come in. We need to see a complete overhaul in staff.
I see Ralph stick around.
Ralph
I think his honesty has been refreshing.
I think he's going to be so damning.
Yeah,
in his thing. When he talks about what he's seen, what he's experienced, I think he's been really honest as it is.
With Mitchell and Ten Hag.
I think when he's with Paul Mitchell and Ten Hag behind closed doors, he's going to absolutely
I don't know what the
explode.
German word for prick is.
Listen,
because that's going to get flung around.
It's going to be worrying. And I don't think... Why have the players not had the kind of mindset of thinking, I know Rangnick's going to be in a consultancy role. He's not just going to leave after this 6 months. He's going to tell the next manager all about me.
Think about it.
But
he knows Ten Hag.
Yeah.
They have some sort of prior relationship. I'm not sure why, but like he's recommended Ten Hag, so he obviously knows him on some level.
Do you know what it is? It's like what Gary Neville said, and he's confirmed. I think he was absolutely bang on when he said it. United's issue that the other big clubs haven't done is United have frequently elevated players above the manager and above the higher ups, and he's bang on.
Well,
and that's the
whole stick.
That's the general culture.
Fergie's whole stick was no bigger than the manager. The second Roy Keane challenges authority, right or wrong, because every player that I've ever seen, and like Rio said some stuff about that video, and the way it all went down, he says he thinks there's a lot of why Keane went was because he challenged the authority of Sir Alex at the time. And I think my own take on it is Keane was also on the wane. You know, he'd had a lot of injuries. He wasn't the force he was. So having a player like that who maybe isn't keen on getting off is an issue. So Fergie was like, right, now for betterment of the team, it's in a bit. David Beckham played 10 years at the top of the game following leaving United. Real Madrid, AC Milan, Paris Saint-Germain. His last game was the Champions League quarter-final, his last game or something like that. Do you know what I mean? At 38 or some shit. Like, David Beckham had 10 years at the top. I don't even think, compared to some of the bullshit that goes on now, I don't think David Beckham had took his eye off the ball. But he was like, nah, off you fucking pop. The day Rio signed, Dwight York showing him round Old Trafford. Dwight York, European Golden Boot, treble winner, absolute fucking goal machine. Just won 3 back-to-back titles. He walks in, Rio's being shown around by him. Fergie pulls him to a side and goes, he's fucking gone. Don't hang around with him. He's took his eye off the ball. Out the fucking door. Fergie was ruthless like that because the whole game was no one bigger than the manager. You know, when Rooney got his pay rise after flirting with City, Fergie goes, I don't think any of these players should be paid more than me. He goes, how can I tell them what to do if they're on more than me? Joe Glazer went, you're absolutely right. Putting a clause in his contract that he gets parity with anyone who's the top earner at United.
And he's famous 29.
Can you imagine?
And Fergie's famous 29 over 1 year prove it deals that he used to do with players to kind of keep them hungry. It's different times, man.
Now, I think people would see that, like, David De Gea's on, what, 375 grand a week? He's a highest earner?
Ronaldo?
Oh, Ronaldo. You might be able to make an exception for Ronaldo on a 1-2 year deal, maybe. But what manager, and this might be why Simeone's on what he's on. Maybe he's had the same sort of thing going on at Atletico. No one gets paid more than me because I'm in charge. You walk into Atletico and tell me that he's not in charge.
He's in charge.
He's in fucking charge. He's absolutely in charge. And you're right, I think there's something in that. Now, I don't think Ten Hag's getting anywhere near probably what Scott McTominay gets. Right or wrong. Anyway, that's a little bit, I guess, of a discussion about what we're going to see with these. I think we'll probably pick this up again next week with Dre because I'd love to say I think there's going to be some development on Paul Mitchell, but I don't know. So watch this space. I'd love to see something develop there. But I think if you've just going to replace Marcel Boot and Jim Lawler with Mitchell and Rangnick with different titles maybe and possibly overlapping responsibilities, I'm very excited at that.
Upgrade.
I think those three men between them could have a massive impact on United's future. And do you know what the crazy thing is? Fergie was doing all of their jobs. That's how good Fergie was. He was doing all of their jobs with the authority to do all of their jobs. But there you go. That's it from us. Make sure to go and check out Manscaped as well. XG20 is the code. Get 20% off and free shipping. Your balls will thank you. It's getting hot. You don't need it to be any hotter in the underpants. So crack on. See you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.